All right, so today live review of the Aberfeldy 21 Highland single malt Scotch whiskey from the Aberfeldy distillery. This is a Bacardi product. It says limited release on the front. I don't know how limited it is. There's like a billion of these around, I'm sure. There it is in all its glory. 40% alcohol, 80 proof, chill filtered, color added. 21 years, 21-year-old in first fill, refill, and rechar ex-bourbon barrels and hogsheads, and some ex-sherry butts. So that's what we got on the docket for today. And of course, this is Aberfeldy, the Golden Dram. Real gold in here. We'll start spinning the box, why not? It'll be box spinners today. There it is. And again, a bit of an age statement on this one, but it's still 40% alcohol at the end of the day. Classic ex-bourbon, ex-sherry mix. It's probably major on the bourbon, minor on the sherry. I don't know. I don't know the exact distribution for sure. But 21 years of age. It's got a few years under its belt. It has a bottle number, but it's in the, let's say it's over 145K. So I'm not sure how limited this is, but there's at least 149K of these. Not that limited. All right, I'm going to rate this out of 100. 25 for aroma, 25 for palate, 25 for finish, 10 for texture, 15 for my personal experience. Why don't we just, let's try this. I've never tried this before. Why don't we put the bottle in this fancy box and then spin it inside? Do you think that'll work? Ooh la la, look at that. And there's your color there for, again, something that is not quite natural, but I'm sure like for 21 years of age with some first fill and some sherry butts in here, they don't add too much to this, but they could add some. They're still diluting it to 40% alcohol from whatever a 21-year-old barrel proof is, so there's still a decent amount of dilution with this. Boom. Some people say you should give it a minute in the glass for every year in the barrel. I don't typically subscribe to that idea, so we're not going to wait 21 minutes before we assess this whiskey. But we'll give it some amount of time. A little bit anyway. And again, my initial impressions of this range have just been that, man, it doesn't seem that bad. I just shame about the proof. It always feels a little light. Then again, you know, that's sometimes what we're going for, that smooth, easy drinking experience. But unfortunately, when it comes at the expense of added depth and complexity, that's kind of where we kind of drop off for me personally. But of course, if you are going to go for something at 40% alcohol, because that alcohol burn is perhaps, you know, you're not consuming too much straight whiskey, and that is still a major player for you. You don't want to ratchet it up to barrel strength. Then obviously for 40%, the older of a product that you can get, the more flavor you're going to end up with, obviously. All right. So on the nose, initially, actually, the first thing that hits me is a kind of a nice floral component, slightly perfumey, and then into kind of like that typical like orchard fruit nose. Orchard fruits, slightly malty, maybe a bit of a side of dried fruits or red grapes. Actually getting some nice like juicy kind of like apricot and peach out of this right now. Some toasted oak in there, but also some maltiness. Actually, overall, not bad. Not bad for a nose. Especially coming off nosing that nos this morning. We nosed a nos this morning. And that didn't smell like anything. And there's always that chance, sometimes, you're a little bit stuffed up and you're like, well, maybe I just don't smell anything because I'm stuffed up, because we went through that period last year where I couldn't smell anything. So it's always reassuring a little bit that when you go to a completely different liquid, that it does in fact smell like something instead of smelling like nothing. Reassure yourself that it wasn't you, it was the liquid that was the problem. But yeah, actually, not bad. Some nice floral components. Those fruity components are in there. A little bit of oak in there, actually. A little bit of maltiness, We're not like waiting for the finish to get the oak. There's a little bit of oak actually on this one, and that might have something to do with its age, of course. Yeah, some like nice peaches and apricot. Maybe a little bit of apple in there. But also feels like you get into a bit of that like darker dried fruit. At first I kind of felt like maybe it leaned a little bit into red grape, but not quite. And again, there's a perfume kind of aspect to this for me. Not bad. All right. So on the palate, Aberfeldy 21 Highland single malt Scotch whiskey, Sláinte. Oh. I don't know if it's just today, but I feel like there's been some appreciation on this since we opened it. And again, that's something we always say is, you neck pour something and it is the same liquid, but it's been sealed for a while. It hasn't had any oxygen exposure. And we try not to judge anything on its neck pour. And we try to give something at least a month's worth of time since it's been poured, since it's been opened, before we kind of go in to score it. Some people give it a few drams, some people drink half the bottle, because again, flavors do change at different levels of oxygenation. But I think, it's fair, not to judge it right on the first pour out of the bottle. But you don't want to wait until like 75% of the bottle's done before you feel like you can give it a fair assessment. you know, to me, it's been open. It's been open for at least a month. Give it some air and see how it feels when it happens to randomly come up for review. And one of the things that's interesting about this particular whiskey is I judged this on the neck pour again, and I compared it side by side to the 16 and the 12. And at the time, it was pretty clear that the 21 was more robust in flavors than like the 16 and 12-year-old. But despite it being more robust than its like younger counterparts, at the end of the day, it still felt a little bit thin. It was still a 40% alcohol, whiskey, despite it being older age statement. And the reason I'm going through this a bit of a preamble is because there's actually like a set of flavors that I'm getting now on this palette that I don't remember getting before, and definitely like add to the depth of this particular whiskey. And again, a lot of times I feel like I don't get some of those deeper, darker, more intense notes unless it's something that's fairly old and it's been aged in like older like sherry, especially like darker sherry kind of action. But man, did I not get some nice darker leathers and tobaccos off of the palate for this just now. And it might just be like the way my palate's acting today, but I definitely don't remember getting that same kind of like dark notes, like again tobacco and like maybe like toasted oaky characters in the palate on the finish, sure, but tobacco I don't think is a note I would have given this or even predicted based off the neck pour that I already had of it. And again, it doesn't seem to really quite match the aroma, but I'm getting some nice, better nose out of this. There is again a perfuming element. There's also there also is a slight kind of like red fruit, maybe like red berry, or maybe like red licorice thing kind of like randomly popping out sometimes, which I'm assuming is like the sherry butt related, but it's kind of weird. Again, on the nose right now, mostly malty, some peaches and apricot, some toasted oak, but it feels like every once in a while I'm getting this whiff of this kind of like red, this sweet red thing, which I don't want to go into and say is like a red grape varietal, but it's more hitting me like a red licorice, like, but not like clearly red licorice, almost like a little like boom, or like a little bit of like slightly red cherry kind of thing, just like a little bit, just for like a second. This is surprising me a little bit. I expected not much. Obviously very approachable, older whiskey, low alcohol. Can you get in there? And for me, it's like a toasted malt kind of note. And then you get some of those like innate kind of like almost honey sweetness. It doesn't really get fruity. for me. But then it leads in like the back of the palate to like some of these like kind of like cigar box or tobacco kind of notes, and into a little bit of oaky character. And then as soon as you swallow, maybe a little bit of spice, more of that tobacco leaf, some oakiness in there too. And again, it's very like, we'll say smooth and easy to drink. Obviously it is not sharp in any way. It's very well rounded in that respect. So not prickly, not mouth warming or anything, no heat to it. There's a nice kind of bouquet of aromas despite them being like pretty tame in intensity. They're not super like intense, but there's a good range of detectables, I suppose. And there's a nice, you know, a little bit of a transition in the palate. Again, that's kind of cider sort of sweet multi-character. With like, again, like maybe a slightly honey sweet kind of thing going on, into more like, again, almost like darker notes, like, again, like cigar or tobacco. Not smoky, but like tobacco as a note, I guess. And then more into like a dark oak or even dark chocolate, if you want to call it that, in the back of the palate. Right at the beginning of the finish, you get a bit of a spike of baking spices. Chocolate starts to go up. Actually, bit of like dark coffee or mocha. That, again, like almost like loose tobacco leaf. Into a little bit of more oakiness at the back. And that's kind of, again, it's a little bit surprising because I don't remember feeling this good about it when I poured it the first time. Not bad, actually. Quite enjoying this particular dram at this moment. Now, it could be that we haven't had a stronger whiskey in a couple of days, you know. We're on Monday, so we're fresh off the weekend, and a lot of times I'll drink like no alcohol on the weekend. I think on Saturday, again, we did our Monkey 47 Schwarzwald dry gin. So that's alcohol, I suppose, but it's a completely different realm of flavors, right? So it could be, you know, we haven't had any whiskeys in a few days, and some of those generic whiskey flavors maybe popping up a little bit spicy today. But I want to give this the benefit of the doubt and feel like that, like maybe, you know, it just needed a little bit of time, and maybe some air really helped open up some of those older age sort of flavors. Actually experiencing some good and unique flavor, distinctive flavors and transitions that I kind of didn't really expect. So let's try to nail down the aroma at a 25. Again, nothing too super duper like surprising going on. Good bouquet of notes. Random helicopter. Some reasonable intensity. They're not that strong, but, you know, not too bad. Some of those early notes do fade a little bit more than I would personally like. We got cat back. Hi, cat. I'm going to move this so I can use the keyboard. Watch out. So, again, not bad. Maybe slightly above average. Pretty reasonable. Aroma, I'll go 18. I think that's pretty good. All right. Now let's talk about the palette, which again, actually surprised me a little bit. I expected less than I got. You're here to get in everything. Yeah, you're here to get into everything. What are you doing? You goober. Yeah, you're here to get into everything. Yeah, whiskey and cats, yeah. That's the show, isn't it? Alright. Let's try to assess the palette with distractions. Again, right up front, a little bit malty, a little bit of that kind of like slightly honey, maybe malt sweetness. Then you get into like maybe a little bit of a fruity thing. It's really whispery though. Like maybe like a touch of dried fruit, or maybe like a touch of what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. 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 You. Anyway, what I was trying to say, maybe like a little bit of touch of like dried fruit or a little bit of fruity something there, but not much. But then you have like kind of a nice transition into like some slightly tobacco, slight chocolate, darker barrel related notes near the end of the palette. Good transition, like right on the money. Like they feel very like well presented and distinct, which I do enjoy. Really quite good palette actually, despite it being 40% alcohol. Usually they don't impress me too much, but this one is really hitting for me today. Frankly, 21. 21. I think that's about a banger palette today. And now we're going to talk about the finish, much as we can. Try to describe that. Right when you swallow, get a little bit of that baking spices in there, but you do still get some of those like tobacco and sort of chocolatey mocha coffee kind of note. Yeah, I really like dark chocolate, or like almost like, again, mocha feels like a good place to be. We haven't really talked about length of finish, but I feel like long minus is actually fair. And again, some of that oak rides out a little bit. You know, pretty nice. Not super intense. A good definition of different layers here. I'm going to go with 19. So we're talking about texture. And again, this one is not super duper thick or anything, but I think its age has kind of helped it not come across too thin despite its proof being a little low. Unfortunately, the texture does suffer a little bit for me. I'm gonna have to go 3 out of 10 on that one. All right. So overall, out of 15, my personal experience with this one, Aberfeldy, 21-year-old, which again, I feel like the neck bore didn't do this ball nearly the justice that it probably deserved. That being said, a couple points of ABV would do this some real good, I think. Is not not nearly what it could be, I think, with some extra ABV. But again, we try to ask ourselves, why would we go for this bottle, I suppose, versus other bottles? One thing I can say for sure is this one in particular, low alcohol content. So if you don't like, I suppose, have a dram very often and you want something that has got a reasonable flavor depth, but also a low ABV, it's not a bad place to go. It seems like, despite the fact that it's been diluted to 40%, what's going on here is still held up in terms of these kind of rich and kind of almost like coffee and mocha tobacco sort of characters that are especially in the bitter end of it. I didn't find nearly as many light and bright fruity and malty and sweet components that I did on younger whiskeys. This one wasn't nearly as sweet. It was more on the darker notes, the tobacco and barrel, darker spices, which is not bad. I definitely enjoyed that, despite would have been nice to have a full range of okay, we can get some nice and light fruits and then we get some darker flavors at the back. But I felt like the treble didn't really hold up its end here, at least not today. But that's okay. It's not a bad offering. Again, 21-year-old age statement sometimes is very expensive. This one is pretty reasonable. So out of 15, again, not bad, not forgettable. Doesn't stand out a super huge amount. Give it 6. So we put these together. We calculate these together. We got an 18 and a 21 and a 19 and a 3 and a 6. We get 67 out of 100. I call this great. A great whiskey. Great. Nope. Okay. Not bad.